There we go. Welcome. PoliTicKing, yours truly, Tony King here, and we are so glad you are hanging out with us. And special thanks to our studio audience, right? All right. The second time around. We thank you guys for hanging out with us. This is a show that is very serious. That's why we call it PoliTicKing. Maybe it's serious. It's kind of serious. That's why we call it You know what? It's not that serious at all. Kinda, which is why the audience is laughing now. But we talk about everything here, everything from politics to pop culture. We have special guests that are hanging out with us, and we have you that's hanging out, and our live studio audience. And that time I didn't even have to tell them to do it. Boy, I tell you, they catching it along. We start every show off with just some things that you need to know about. Some things that took place this past week that you know what, you might need in your life. This is the news, but it's kind of like the news, but not quite the news. This news is very serious. Maybe. It's time. The seriously unserious news report. Let's go. Oh, and in world news, President Joe Biden spent all week in Israel touring and viewing the conditions of the region following the conflict that has arisen in the area. He was so moved by what he saw, he vowed to do everything possible to support the area immediately. Hey, he needed a nap. Side note, since President Biden has come back from Israel, he's been living his best life, hasn't he? A Florida woman's alleged drunken high-speed chase turned into a violent fingernail attack this past week. Fingernail. After going 120 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone, state troopers pulled her over and arrested her. And that's when things took a turn for the worse. And she began to violently attack the state troopers with her fingernails. Violently. She was later booked alive and charged with a DUI and aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer. And before you ask, yes, she was. Yeah. When the state trooper was asked why he did not use more force during the violent fingernail attack, he said he was, quote, saving his bullets for his more non-violent offenders. Alligator hunters in Mississippi recently broke the world record when they captured an 800-pound, 14-foot alligator, in which my uncle said he's currently looking for the alligator because he wants to know where they stored it. Because, quote, he needs a new pair of gators for every day of the week. My uncle thinks he's a pimp, y'all. That's why I said that. So, just saying. They'll get it. Coming a little closer to home, the OPDA was carjacked this weekend. The Orleans Parish District Attorney, they are carjacking the what? Him and his 78-year-old mother carjacked in the Lower Garden District. You know, you really got to be bad to carjack the OPDA. We recently reached out to the Orleans Parish District Attorney, in which he had this to say.
Oh, you mother. Okay. All right. I'm putting cases on all you. Huh? You think you can do this? Jay! You think you can do this to me? You motherfuckers will be playing basketball in Pelican Bay when I get finished with you. Shoe program. 23-hour lockdown. I'm the man up in this piece. You'll never see the light of day. Who the f you think you with? I'm the police. I run here. You just live here.
Taylor Swift showed up to another football game. How do we know? That's all they showed. They show more Taylor Swift at the football games than they show of the actual game. I know, right? Speaking of white singers, Britney Spears announced a tell-all book that is about to be released, her upcoming memoir titled The Woman in Me, due to shock us all with some of the revelations. She shared some of the snippets of what we can expect, like the bombshell that in the early 2000s, she got pregnant by Justin Timberlake when the two were dating. I know, right? This proves that Justin was not just bringing sexy back, he was also bringing bear back. We reached out to Justin, in which he responded like this. Oh, y'all getting it. First Jada, now Brittany. I'm starting to think that it's a trend. I can't lie, I'm actually looking forward to Brittany's book. It seems like it's gonna be the perfect mix of Jerry Springer meets mayonnaise sandwiches with a touch of trailer park. I'm excited to read it and all the dysfunction, but something about me makes me think that Brittany's memoir is probably gonna be written in crayon. And with that being said, that is our seriously unserious news report. Stay tuned. We have special guest C. Denise Marcelle, who will be joining us, and our political panel. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned right here. It's PoliTicKing with Tony King and our live studio audience. Oh, man, they are getting it.
Boo. God, Landon. Fright Night is coming up. We're just a couple of weeks away. October 28th in Houma, Louisiana at the East Park Rec Center. It's gonna be a scary good night of wrestling.
That's right. If you're enjoying Unleashed, it's time for you to come out and see Pro Wrestling 225 live on our scariest night of the year. Fright Night in Houma, Louisiana. And it's going to be a great one, Landon, including a
no holds barred, no disqualification street fight.
That's right, and we have heavy-hitting matchups up and down the card, championship matches. You do not want to miss it. Fright Night, October 28th, Houma, Louisiana. Tickets are on sale now. Do not wait. Scoop them up.
If nothing else, it's been some mad game for you, homie. Holla.
Welcome back to a show when you are a part of the audience, you just may start interning here. They get it. It's PoliTicKing. Yours truly, Tony King. And as promised, I told you we will be sitting down with our first guest. And I have the pleasure of having someone that is not just a friend of the people, it's also a fighter for the people. None other than State Representative, District 61, Miss C. Denise Marcelle. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Yes. I got to say, hands down, and I'm not just saying this, when I say a person of the people, you really are like the people. They have this immense love for you. How can you explain that?
Well, first of all, I'm honored for you to say that. Everybody doesn't love me, though. I don't agree with
Only
that.
the people that you, only political rivals, they don't care.
Political rivals don't love me, but I've oftentimes done everything that I could do to help the people, to bring the people up, to educate people, and certainly they gave me the nickname The Voice, and I try to make sure that I'm the voice for the people.
And I'm gonna tell you this now, not only do you let that voice be heard, like you are actually on the front lines no matter what the fight is. I mean, you've been at the Capitol fighting for women's health, reproductive rights, and things like that. More so, I remember last year with the YWCA, I had the opportunity to see you just speaking about some things about black pregnancy rates and how you've been fighting to get more information about black maternity. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I was working along with Ms. Allen on some issues as it relates to the mortality rates that we face with our people who are having babies in the state of Louisiana. And it was just a lot of the information I didn't know until I started to dig into it. Yeah. And when I found out, it was alarming to me.
Yeah.
And I felt like more people needed to know about it, and we needed to fight to make sure that that number would decrease. So there were issues that we faced trying to get things out of the healthcare committee, which is kind of difficult. But we took that fight on anyway. It doesn't really matter.
A fight ain't nothing to you.
Sometimes it doesn't matter if you win the fight. It's just if you give it your all and you educate people along the way. And it may not happen maybe this session, but along the way you may be able to get something passed.
So what do you think is one of your especially for something like that that's so needed, what do you think is one of the biggest obstacles in order to, because that's something that's to the healthcare of the entire state, and the health of one affects us all. Like,
Right.
what has been one of the obstacles with that?
The committee makeups. The committee makeups are such that they're very conservative.
Yeah.
And it's almost got to be something that slaps them in the face, or something about the issue that it relates back to money.
Yeah.
Other than that, they really kind of, in Louisiana, kick the can down the road.
Yeah.
For better words, that's all I could see. And it could make sense, and people will look at you and tell you, Tony, you know, Denise, I think you got a great bill, but I can't vote for it because the people back at home will be all over me. And I'm like, this is just absolutely insane.
But wait. You said, you know, some of the committee makeup,
Yes.
a little bit more conservative.
Yes.
But conservatives are pro-life, right?
Sometimes they're pro-life.
Okay. Some pro-life.
Sometimes they're pro-life.
Yeah.
They're pro-life to get them here, but not to take care of them after they get here.
Right.
So it's a little,
Okay.
You know, it's kind of double
Yeah.
standard.
Well, you know, it depends on what
what
day of the week is it?
Yeah,
it
depends.
depends on
It absolutely depends. I tell them that all the time. I say, you pro-life today, but you also believe in capital punishment.
Right.
I'm just a little confused with that.
Right. So one thing too is that it's not just about that, but you fight really hard for your district. You fight hard for everybody, really. But where do you attribute that desire to just want to fight for people that you don't even know?
I guess it's my upbringing. I come from very humble beginnings in Eden Park area, and my grandfather both my grandfathers on both sides were fighters. Both of them were ministers, and both of them were very vocal.
See, I knew it.
In the
The
pushing
church,
people to
the church,
not
go ahead and
just
say
the church,
the church.
but voter rights and those types of things. So one of my grandfathers was very vocal in the Eden Park area in terms of getting people registered to vote.
Yeah.
In an organization there that was founded on the principles and on the backs of the church.
Yeah.
And so I think I got a lot of that from him. And so when I grew up, and I would say that I worked for attorneys, so I had a decent living, and I looked back at my community, and there was so many different holes in the community and things that they didn't have. I tell people all the time, I never really wanted to be a politician. I just always wanted to be a servant.
Yeah.
And so as I started to serve people in my district, people started to ask me to run for the position of city council, and that's kind of how I got here.
Good
just
deal.
serving.
And that's what it is. It's all about service. Now, you've been very active, like probably from what I've seen, one of the more active state representatives in terms of the amount of bills you file. Like, how many bills do you normally file a session? Like, you go hard. like you really file, like,
Well,
that many?
Every year I say I'm not going to file that many bills, and I'm not going to take on that many fights. But a lot of people bring me bills that other people are scared to touch in a lot of instances, and some of them are just my passion.
Yeah.
The clean water fight that I had, the clean air fight that I had, and many of the members asked me, well, "What are you doing fighting for the people over in Colfax, Louisiana?" Where a lot of the people were dying from cancer. We didn't have a lot of things in place to protect them from the emissions in the air. And so I take on those fights because I think it's important that whatever area you live in, they may not have the person to be that voice for them. And I tell people all the time, I'm a state representative for District 61 with a focus on District 61, but I am elected for all of the people of the state of Louisiana.
Now, you mentioned that about and we'll get to the clean water because I really want to talk about that, but you mentioned about the clean air. And that's something that kind of seems like, okay, you might want to be quiet about that because fossil fuels kind of funds a lot in the state. What makes you think, like, what gives you the guts to say, you know what, I'm going to go head up against the big dogs?
Well, I mean, because first of all, I've never taken any money from them. So the people elect me. I believe I have the right to voice my opinion and fight for the people that don't have anybody else to fight for them. And it's not about them being upset with me. Many times, I fill up the room with people from ExxonMobil and all of those places from everywhere to fight against my bills. And that just tells me that I'm on the right road.
Yeah, you're doing something right.
I'm doing something right for the people. And so I want to fight to make sure we have clean air and water for my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. I may be dead and gone, But the fight for me is not about me. It's the legacy that I'll leave for them.
Now, you mentioned the clean water, and that's something that's kind of important because we've seen it affect other communities. We've seen it affect Jackson, Mississippi, Flint, Michigan. And now with what's been going on with the saltwater intrusion into the Mississippi.
Orleans.
Yeah, exactly. And you were one of the first ones to really kind of start sounding the alarm, not just about that, but about, hey, our aquifers, you know, these companies are using our freshwater supply, it's getting low. Hey, y'all, hey, this is a problem. You've been one of the main ones, you know, out there sounding that alarm, but, you know, it hasn't been getting a lot of attention. What do you think is the reason for that?
It was the makeup of the committee. The committee that hear those bills, they're already set. They've already padded many of the members' pockets, or it's just basically along the lines of either the demographics or Republicans versus Democrats, and you're just not going to get anything out of those committees. I was very honored and excited to get a bill out of that committee which changed the makeup of the board because we had the industry overlooking the industry. You got the hen watching the hen house. So you're never going to really get any change. And so I was very excited that year to get a bill out of that. It kind of changed the makeup of the board. And I continued to push, and it got some traction, and then it fizzed out. But I mean, I think people have to be realistic about what's really going to happen. I love Exxon. Yes, they bring a lot of jobs here. Can they use the river water instead of our fresh water? Yes, they can. Will that cost them some more money? Yes, it will. Is that beneficial to the people here in Louisiana overall? It is. And so I absolutely take on that fight continuously about the clean water because it's all about your perspective on how and when it's going to happen because they keep putting Band-Aids on it and they're not really fixing the problem.
And we're at like the lowest levels we've been in ages, right?
Right. And so they always use this deal, Tony, about it's there for the right of capture. The right of capture. So it's here so we can use it. So the only thing that can happen is that we can pass legislation to stop them from using our fresh water. And we have some of the best water here in Baton Rouge anywhere. And so when that starts to go away and it starts to cost people, then people will get alarmed, but it will be too late because our water will be depleted.
And we'll be sitting here saying that you've been telling us this for years.
Yes.
Yeah, and by then it'll be too late. You know what? We don't want that to happen. So what we need to do, what can we do now to help you out and to help us out in the future with the water problem?
Well, one of the things that I tell people all the time, they say, well, you know, that's a good fight, but nobody comes to the table when you're fighting industry. In fact, I have had colleagues in the past that say, you need to go sit down and meet with the industry because they're not happy with your bill. Well, I'm not filing a bill to make them happy. I'm filing a bill to do the right thing for the people. So you will have colleagues that look like you and I that turn their back on you.
I know what you're saying.
Because they don't want you fighting against ExxonMobil and I'm calling their names a lot because they are one of the largest users of our water. And the other one is the plant up north, but they're not using as much anymore, the paper plant. That's another one. And then the water, you know, we're using water for other places in Baton Rouge. And so my focus was Baton Rouge, but I think the problem is larger than Baton Rouge. But I definitely want to secure our water here. And I think people need to come to the Capitol. And they need to make themselves heard, particularly in our city, and say, you know, we support what Representative Marcelle is doing, or if you're from another city and you have a person on that committee, your influence, you know, is great.
Well, it's our problem today. It could be your problem tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So you definitely want to let your voice be heard. So that's one thing we can do is go to the Capitol, pay attention. These things matter, and you know what? It's going to happen sooner rather than later. So one last question before we get out here, because I'm grateful that you gave us some time. Okay. We're kind of nearing to the end of our term. Where's the fight? Where are we taking the fight to next?
I'm not sure. I mean, I've got some fillers out there. There's some committees that are asking me to switch gears and go into some other areas. And I'm thinking about those areas. I could go to the Senate, or I could go to
okay.
There's about 3 options out there that I'm weighing in on. And you know, I just want to do I don't want to go to a place where I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
to win.
Yeah.
I want to go to a place where I can make a difference
Yeah.
for my constituents in this city.
Well, one thing we know is that you will always continue to make a difference. You'll always fight for the people, no matter which of those three options you take. So we thank you so much for hanging out with us.
All right.
Representative Marcelle. Well, I'll tell you, that audience is on it today. Stay tuned. This PoliTicKing. We'll have more right here. Keep it locked.
Advertising and operating a business go hand in hand. Mad Game Entertainment has a long, detailed history of working within clients' budgets and delivering big results. Mad Game helped launch the popular Go Vote app. We've been involved with several successful political campaigns. We assist the everyday marketing needs for small businesses and many other organizations. We custom fit marketing plans for the largest budget and the most modest. We look forward to enhancing your presence in your industry.
Welcome back. PoliTicKing, a show that needs money so bad that it's about to start an OnlyFans page. Time for us to get serious for a second. You know, America was first colonized by Europeans on the premise of religious liberties, namely of the Protestant denomination of Christianity. It's embedded in many aspects of our law, from the country's inception to now. The First Amendment of the Constitution addresses it with the fact that it's stated that we as Americans have the freedom to worship how we want. And for many of those years from our birth to now, that freedom was exercised through the Christian church. But over the last few years, that has changed. Studies show that church attendance is down dramatically, and that the number of people who identify as Christian has gone down from 77% in 2012 to about 69% at the end of 2022. You may think that's not too bad. Well, it was in 90% in the 90s. So what has happened to make church attendance go down so sharply, so fast? Well, I know. Brunch. Brunch is killing church. Maybe if church wants better attendance, they might want to serve bottomless mimosas and play some Sexy Red. Is it that people are no longer into worshiping, or have they just found something else to worship? America is celebrity relationship crazy. It's so big who a celebrity is sleeping with that it's covered on news stations now. Americans are still worshiping. It's just that we've traded in crosses for couples goals. The coverage that the NFL is giving the Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift is sickening. I'm trying to watch a game, and why do you have to show her every play? I see more Taylor Swift at the game than I see of the actual game. It's like I don't know whether I'm watching the Saints or celebrity news. And what's so bad about it is, you know it's going to end. That relationship ain't going to last. That relationship is going to end just like this couple. And this couple. And this couple. And this couple. And how this couple needs to end their relationship. And when it ends, you know she's going to have a song about him. Her whole album going to be fire. She gonna have lyrics in there saying things like, I thought I had a touchdown, but you fumbled me. That album is gonna be a smash. But guess what? They won't last. And you're gonna be left with nothing to worship. So what I say is, it's time for you to do something with that Sunday faith. Go do something productive. Go back to where that Sunday faith needs to be. At brunch with bottomless mimosas. More politicking on the way. We'll be back.
Phoenix Air Spa provides its customers with a soothing environment, incomparable professional services, and extraordinary results. Relax, recharge, and re-emerge anew at Phoenix Air Spa, always aesthetically you.
Loud pack, I can't see right. From the dark side, I can't see right. No left turns, this check earn like IG. I'm that dude. Slick style off the top rope. Referencing two, I'm Rick Rude.
They hate it bad, but we have. Baby girl, you got that. And I don't wanna lose it.
Gooder than my mama red beans. Have my man rocked up. When your face on my screen. Little mama stepping light, I got that thing on me, and I'm stepping light. She throw that ass on me, like we sexing right. I got that bag on me, got me flexing light. Doing what she have to do, ain't no concern. She live by the cold drink, water my urine. All the baddies come to the flow, make it twerk to the flow real slow.
Mad Game ENT.
Mad Game
ENT.
Mad Game TV.
Mad Game Entertainment.
Mad Game Entertainment. Mad Game Entertainment.
Mad Game Entertainment.
Mad Game Entertainment. Stay tuned, homie.
It's Friday night, and you're now clocked in on the late shift with Will Merrow.
And this Mad Game presents Friday Night Flows. Let's kick it off like this, baby.
Now, laugh later.
And lock it in. We'll be right back with more cocktails, conversations, and me.
JK Lee Sports. Watching this on YouTube? Make sure you click that like and subscribe button on the MGE network. Holla.
Back to a show where the audience is just absolutely amazing. It's PoliTicKing. Tony King here, and as promised, we have our political panel. Our first guest is the author, two-time Pulitzer Prize winner, and has a current book out right now, 5 Laterals and a Trombone Later, the story of the historic Cal-Stanford game. Give it up for columnist Tyler Bridges, everyone. Yes. And our next guest has argued in front of the Supreme Court many, many times, which I find so hard to believe, and is currently in a runoff in Assumption in St. James Parish for Division E District Court Judge. Give it up for Vicky Jones, everyone. Oh, man. They are standing up for Vicky. But with that being said, so I'm gonna jump straight into it, and this one is gonna be more for Tyler because you are more cover more of politics and things like that for The Advocate, as well as being a guest columnist for Politico and Washington Times. So you know about this. Recently, we've had our election, our gubernatorial election, and to many surprise, it was not a runoff needed. Does that shock you?
I think a lot of people were surprised, including myself. And the question now for Governor-elect Landry, when he becomes governor in January, is he going to be the governor that we saw as Attorney General, very, very conservative, or is he going to be a little bit more moderate, as we saw during the just completed gubernatorial campaign?
So let me ask you this. You said it shocked you. Why did it shock you?
Well, the pollsters that I was talking to were not forecasting a victory by Jeff Landry in that primary election. They were expecting a runoff between Jeff Landry and Sean Wilson, but now the governor-elect got 51.5%, and under the Louisiana election rules, that means that he is now the governor-elect and will be governor.
So one thing that always happens post-campaign when it doesn't meet expectations, like many thought that it would, is that there's a lot of finger pointing. Keeping your ear to the political streets, have you heard any finger pointing from the Democratic side or maybe the Sean Wilson campaign about what may have happened as to how a runoff wasn't needed?
Yeah, the chair of the Louisiana Democratic Party, Katie Bernhardt, is under fire, definitely so, and people are blaming Sean Wilson for having not been more of a dynamic or inspirational candidate. But yeah, when the party loses this bad, and as the Democrats, it becomes something of a circular firing. What is this phrase? Circular firings.
Range or squad, firing range. I know what you mean. And what do they mean by dynamic, though? I mean, what were they expecting? Did they want someone, did they have problems with maybe charisma or something like that?
Well, you know, he's been a career bureaucrat, and it was only the second time he ran for political office. The only other time he ran was for the city council in Lafayette in 2007. So he was trying something new, and really in the end it didn't go so well for him, and it did not go very well for the Democratic Party, and now the Democratic Party are facing questions about their relevance, because the state is now so dominated by Republicans.
Well, one thing that kind of sticks out is what they said the voting demographics were, is that, you know, when you think about previous elections, even the last election, Governor John Bel Edwards, amongst the black vote, and I'm only saying this because Sean Wilson, you know, is black, and many black people identify with the Democratic Party, for John Bel Edwards to take home more than 90% of the black vote, but polls that have come out have said that he only took home, or Sean Wilson only took home 70, you know, some odd percent. Is anybody concerned about that you're hearing amongst the Democratic Party about the black vote and the Democratic Party?
Well, I think the Democrats nationally are looking to Louisiana, are a little nervous to say, hey, what happened in Louisiana, is this going to mean that black voters, who are the base of the Democratic Party, particularly black women, is that going to be a problem next year when Joe Biden is running for re-election? But certainly the black turnout in Louisiana was very low, and so there's going to be a lot of analysis as to why.
Well, I mean, homecoming. I mean, we had fun at homecoming. Okay, so we have the election, and I would be remiss not to mention, Ms. Jones, that you know, you are in the middle of a runoff.
Yes.
And tell us about the seat that you're seeking.
I am seeking to fill the seat of Judge Alvin Turner, who retired in January. So that's a seat that covers Ascension, Assumption, St. James Parish. It's a general jurisdiction bench, which means it will hear everything in those parishes. The unique thing about it is it's Division E, so only those residents that are in Division E get to vote for the Division E judge. Whereas everybody else in the parish, they get to vote for all 4 of the judges.
Oh, wow. Now, one thing that, you know, just reading your resume, you know, you have this esteemed legal career, right? And so you have the distinction of arguing before the Louisiana Supreme Court like a million times. So for someone, especially for a lawyer who that is like a dream, to be able to argue a case. You didn't just do it once. You didn't just do it twice. I find it difficult to find you arguing at all.
Oh, okay.
But you've done it multiple times, which, you know, shows your astuteness as a lawyer. Why take a step back now and go to be on the other side?
It's not really a step back. When I argued before the Supreme Court, I was representing the city of Baton Rouge the majority of times because there were some laws that one of the judges was declaring unconstitutional. And because I was the appellate section chief, then I argued before the court. But I don't think it's a step back. It's a progression. I mean, I worked for the city for, I think, almost 24 years. And so I did city. I mean, I've done everything at this point. And now it's time for me to give back to the community in a different way. I give back to the community now because I represent people in the community. But now, I mean, I just see there's a need for me to do that from another vantage point.
Okay. Now, you know, you heard us talking about, you know, from a statewide election standpoint in terms of, you know, the different demographics and voting and things like that. But for you, you're actually more, not statewide, but more about, you know, specific areas. Do you find yourself having to do some of the things that other candidates in other races, you know, have to do, focusing on demographics and things like that? Do you find yourself having to do that? Or do you just go out and be like, you know, hey, you, vote for me?
Not quite. No, we do have to look at the demographics because, again, it's Ascension, Assumption, and St. James parishes. And each of those parishes, the demographics are very different. So I have to reach the base in Ascension in one way, and that's different than I would reach a base in Assumption. St. James and Assumption are more grassroots. Ascension, because it's a bigger area and more voters, we reach them in another way.
Now, okay, so we talk about, you know, what's going on, you know, now with Governor-elect Jeff Landry. So as a judge, and you can kind of chime in with this too, how would a potential Jeff Landry administration affect you if elected, you know, to the bench?
Well, let me correct you. It's not if elected, it's when elected.
Hello!
So we'll
I love it.
We'll start there.
And who said you were nervous?
We will definitely start there. But no, there's no real direct effect from the governor's office to a sitting judge because my job is going to be the same no matter who the governor is. I mean, I have to look at the law as it is currently written and apply it as it is written.
The law is the law.
And it doesn't change.
That's what I like to hear.
Well, the law could be changed by a new, more conservative legislature, right?
That's correct. Now, and not the governor, the legislature. That's correct. They more conservative. There can be changes in those laws because there are some that they argue about a lot now, and a lot of changes, you know, are kind of on the horizon. So whatever those changes are, as judge, then I implement those changes.
So, okay, so just kind of sticking along the Landry administration, for the citizens of Louisiana, there are some that are a little scared. What can we expect overall, just in terms of him and his election promises, and like you said, whether he's going to be more moderate? Is that something that you anticipate, or do you think that maybe some of the more progressive Louisianians may start trying to look to leave the state, as some expect?
Well, I don't know about anybody leaving the state, but Jeff Landry takes over in January, and during the campaign, he said the first thing he was going to do was call a special session on crime. So he and the more conservative legislature might end up passing some laws that will be going, that you will have an opine on as a rule on as a judge. But clearly that it's going to be the more sort of traditional get tough on crime kind of package that we often see from conservatives.
Now, one thing about the whole get tough on crime, and that's something that's pretty interesting, because I was reading some crime statistics just nationally. And one thing that kind of stands out to me that is that you have, and I don't want to, this is not a talking point or anything like that, but one thing that I found interesting is that some of the crime statistics in some of the cities have risen or have been a little, in terms of property value crime, in terms of those types of crimes, have been some cause for concern. You have many people
crimes have gone down in New Orleans. My newspaper did a story of that. I think there's a general perception of that crime is higher than it actually is.
Right.
And you know, perception becomes the reality, of course. But there has been some good numbers in terms of reductions in crime.
And the same thing for Baton Rouge, but just overall, for nationally, I'm speaking more so about property value crime. Some of the things that we've seen in terms of on camera, maybe the mass flash mob, stealing things like that. And I know that that's been a concern in some areas. What do you think that we can do to kind of prevent some of that from ever taking place here in Baton Rouge? Because thankfully we haven't been touched by that, but that's something that has kind of spread. What do you think we can do from that perspective to kind of, from a legislative or from an administrative perspective, and kind of keeping some of that down and preventing that from happening here?
Well, I can say what the new governor wants to do is he wants to have more police officers on the street, I guess, from Baton Rouge, and also state police to have a greater presence. I think they're concerned about some of the laws that were passed on a bipartisan fashion with the outgoing legislature and governor. They want to look at those to see about making the people spend longer times in prison. Remember, Louisiana has had the highest incarceration rate in the country. So this governor, Democratic governor, and legislature have tried to make moves to say, hey, maybe this is not the path we want to be on. But you know, Jeff Landry has criticized that. He criticized woke DAs. We may see him go after the district attorney who got carjacked the other day in New Orleans.
Oh man, that's bad. You know, he messed around, got carjacked. He survived that. Now he got to survive Landry, huh?
Well, he may be facing that.
Oh wow. So okay, you talk about, you know, looking for more, you know, time for those crimes committed, you know, harsher sentencing, things like that. Well, that is something that kind of affects you, wouldn't you say?
That does.
Yeah.
The sentencing does.
Yeah.
But I am conservative. I mean, I can't say that I necessarily disagree with Jeff Landry. I mean, I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. So.
Hello, stand on it now. That's what I'm talking about. So with that, you know, you're more in line with saying, hey, okay, if you come before my court, if you did the crime, then hey, it's not going to be easy for you.
Right.
So you believe that the punishment is a deterrent.
I do, but I do believe in rehabilitation. I absolutely do, but I don't believe in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th chances.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you know, we need to take a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you.
First offenders are different.
First offenders are different.
Right.
4th offenders, hey, get comfortable.
Pretty much.
I'm not mad at you.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break right here. Stay tuned. We have more politicking with our guest panelists. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
With the rise of racism and peace being taken from the world, it leaves a person to wonder, what's going on in the world? Sadly, these things are not going away. Read The Dog Whistleblower to find the link between racism and the coming Armageddon.
What's up? This is your girl Megan Good, and I want to give a shout out to Mad Game ENT.
If only you could see what takes place when the cameras are off. PoliTicKing, Tony King here, and we are here with our panel with Chief Political Correspondent Tyler Bridges and candidate for Judge Vicky Jones. So before break, and I want to get back to this because this was pretty interesting. You stated that you were conservative. You were a Republican.
I am.
So it has not dawned on me that oftentimes it's automatically assumed that black voters, those in politics, will automatically identify with the Democratic Party. Do you ever find yourself having to explain yourself?
All the time. Because just like you, people assume that I would be running as a Democrat as opposed to a Republican. And so I always have to explain why, number one, as a judge, your party should make a difference.
Yeah.
Being a judge should always be nonpartisan. So that should not matter at all. And then I also have to explain that the person that they heard and saw before they realized I was a Republican, I'm still that same person.
Yeah.
So the things that I told them, you know, when I talk to people and I say, okay, these are the things that I believe in and these are the things that are important to me, those things have not changed.
And now you said, I assumed that. I didn't assume that. I got the R right by your name.
You said you assumed that.
No, I'm just saying many would assume
they
that.
do.
You know,
and that's true.
So how do you explain yourself? What do you say? You say, hey, okay, this is what I believe. Now, one thing that's funny to me is that when you think about it historically, many black people in the South really identify from a personal, like their personal lives, identify a lot with the Republican Party. What do you think is that disconnect as to why you see so many that kind of just automatically place their allegiance to the Democratic Party?
If you look at history, traditionally, and if you go back, you know, the party was Republican.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it changed over to Democrats, and I think that's largely because, you know, as we were discussing, the church plays a role in that. But if you will find that a lot of Democrats now are conservative, and they really, you know, reflect those the Republican ideas. They just don't want to say they're Republican. I mean, if you look at our parish, in Ascension Parish, there are a number of independents because they don't want to say that they're Democrat or Republican. But like I said, for my position, should make a difference.
So, and we were talking about this last segment when we were talking about just kind of the problems that some of the Democratic Party may face coming up in the future, especially with the national election next year. Are you finding, you know, as a chief political correspondent, are you finding that more of those black voters who are breaking away from the Democratic Party, are they listing some of the reasons that she said?
Well, in this last election, it looks like Governor-elect Landry got about 12% of the black vote, which was just much higher than the results for John Bell Edwards. So that's certainly something to take a look at, and I think people are going to be analyzing whether there is a potential shift why didn't black voters turn out in big numbers, even in decent numbers, in the in October 14th primary?
Now, you know, I keep my ears to the political streets, you know, just kind of keeping a listen out to what, you know, everyday average Louisianians and those around my community say. And I know that, you know, especially I've been around, you know, in predominantly male identifying areas where, you know, a lot of black men are basically saying, and they've expressed some of these things, they say, like, you know, they feel like the Democratic Party isn't really speaking to them. Have you all seen any of that, like maybe black men are being left behind? Or because one thing that we always see with the Democratic Party is that, you know, women are always a focus, but they never really have anything that really kind of identifies with that. Are you seeing anything like that?
I'll let you take that one.
Right. I haven't seen anything and spoken specifically about men being left behind, but one of the things that has been just a resounding, you know, since the beginning of this, women basically dictate and they do the work. I mean, when you look at, you know, the work that's being done in order to get people elected or after they're elected, that work is being largely done by women.
Hey, I mean, you're right.
We're doing the work.
You are doing the work, and your whole team is doing the work. Her entire team full of women. We might have to file an EEOC complaint or something.
That's not going to get anywhere, but okay.
We can't argue with you. That's what that is. So no,
especially after she's elected.
Especially after she's elected, because it's not if when.
There you go.
So
thank you so much, Tyler.
They're tag teaming me. But I really think that that's something that's going to be interesting leading up to the national election, because, you know, we have kind of a candidate that some would kind of liken being unenthusiastic about the Democratic base in Joe Biden. You know, is age an issue? Like, is that going to be something? Are we going to get someone who may jump into the race? I think that all of those things are really concerns. Do you think any of that?
Well, clearly voters, Democratic voters, are concerned about the age of Joe Biden, but it doesn't look like any other candidate's going to have an opportunity to get in the race. I think that ship has already sailed.
But, and here's the thing, I mean, Trump is still extremely popular amongst the Republican Party, even facing, you know, all of the different legal situations that are going on. Do you think there's any path for him to be the candidate for the Republican Party?
For Trump?
Yeah.
Well, clearly he's the most popular Republican, but it may end up be some judge who decides to be on the ballot or not.
Yeah.
Would that ever be something that you would want to do? Is that like something you would want to, you know, matriculate up to the federal level?
To run for president?
No, the federal level in terms of judge.
Oh, no. I mean, I am 58 years old now. So.
First of all, don't come on this show and lie when you know that you are 10, 15 years younger.
Well, I've been saying I was 35 for a very long time.
Now that's more like it.
But she can't do that anymore as a candidate.
Cannot, because it says on that card that I've been practicing for 31 years. So do the math. Math is just not mathing.
I just thought you were a prodigy and you finished law school at 5. That's all that was.
Okay. And it could be.
So this is your final stop then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then you good. You just gonna chill and ride off into the sunset and, you know, argue with us for the rest of your days.
Yeah, but don't let her off the hook. It's a state judge in Georgia who's going to be handling that case right there, right? No, or is that federal?
That would be a federal court.
In New York City.
Well, there's so many cases, we don't know which one it is. That's what it is.
That's what I was just about to ask. Which one of the cases? I mean, he's being charged in state court and federal court.
So there are so many cases. Have you had a chance to familiarize yourself with any of the cases at all?
Only, I mean, I've looked at them. I mean, like you said, there are so many, and there's so many different charges in each state. It's like hard to keep up with them.
I mean, realistically, is there really a possibility that he could actually be found guilty and face punishment? I mean, realistically, like any of the cases, I just don't see a former president, even though, you know, some of the things, you know, if it were anyone else, it'd be a definite. I just don't see that just from a political standpoint. Like, would we want that base to be upset again? Or how would that look internationally and things like that? Like, is there really a chance that he would face punishment? Do you think?
I think there should be equal justice under the law, right? Whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, the law, as you were sort of saying earlier, the law should be blind if somebody commits a crime and the jury finds him guilty.
Oh, man.
Right, and I think there's more of a chance now because they're coming at him, you know, from every angle. I mean, we have so many charges to choose from, and then you have so many different state laws, you have federal laws, so, I mean, there's a lot for him to untangle.
And then when you start to see those he was working with, you know, whether Sidney Powell, his lawyers, things like that, they're all kind of, you know, cutting deals. I mean, it's almost looking like it's kind of closing in on them. So,
oh, and to bring it back to Louisiana, remember Jeff Landry was his candidate.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, political feathers together, huh? Right.
And one of the first calls that the governor-elect got was from Donald Trump, congratulating him.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Watch your friends, everybody. Watch your friends. Well, guys, I want to thank you guys for coming and spending some time with us here on PoliTicKing. You guys are definitely amazing and always welcome back. Remember,
thank you.
Tyler Bridges, chief political correspondent for The Advocate. Make sure to get that book. The book, tell us again.
5 laterals and a trombone, Cal Stanford, and the wildest finish in college football history.
The wildest finish in college football history. And you're a Stanford grad, so I know that kind of, you know, you have a special, it has a special place in your heart.
And I played in the Stanford band, which ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time in that game 40 years ago.
Oh, wow. You need to tackle better as a band member.
Oh, that's what John Elway said.
Yeah.
And of course, Miss Vicky Jones, and the election is when?
November 18th.
November 18th.
Right. Early voting starts November 3rd through the 11th, and it is critical that we get out and vote.
And it's not if, it's when.
When.
And
Correct.
she can argue. And she's not nervous. And she actually kind of works for PoliTicKing now. The audience gets it. We thank you guys so much, and we can't wait to have you back. Hey, it's PoliTicKing. Stay tuned. We have more on the way.
We have got to find new ways to increase our revenue.
Sir, we can increase our revenue sales by enhancing our social media presence.
Yeah, so does anybody else have an idea?
We can clearly increase our revenue sales by enhancing our social media presence.
Great idea.
Has this ever happened to you?
Make a bold statement. Upgrade your wardrobe at Super Cool Fashions.
Thanks, Super Cool.
Super Cool Fashions located at 6180 Airline Highway.
From classic cop shows to comedies, entertainment shows to retro movies, nature, sci-fi, and talk shows, plus original programming from local curators. WBTR 36 is your one-stop shop to watch the television you love. In connection with this TV, WBTR is your home for the content you crave. So sit back, relax, and tune into television that the entire family can enjoy. WBTR 36, Baton Rouge, television for the family.
Juan, what's up? This is your people, Manny Fresh, and you watching Mad Game Entertainment. You heard me? Don't change that.
Welcome back to a show where even candy corn eaters agree with us that that peanut candy nasty. You know what? We thank you all for hanging out with us today. And I just want to say this. Hollywood has gone remake crazy. Oh, my bad. They don't call them remakes anymore. They say reimaginings. They did it with The Little Mermaid. They're doing it with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Matter of fact, they aren't even called dwarfs anymore. And now they are doing it with Winnie the Pooh. True story. Peacock just released a reimagining of Winnie the Pooh titled Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's true. Look it up. It's a scary movie. And the premise of it is Christopher Robin goes away to college and Winnie and Piglet go on a bloody, violent rampage looking for new sources of food. What kind of nightmares are they trying to give kids? Winnie the Pooh used to be this sweet little guy or girl, who knows? That's his life, however he identifies. Now Pooh is a thug? You trying to tell me Pooh is out here killing people? Is this where we are as a society? I don't want to see no scary Pooh. I don't even like scary movies, but I definitely wouldn't see that one. And that brings us to tonight's Top 5. Top 5 scariest movies. Coming in at number 5, The Blair Witch Project. Now, I know what y'all saying. Hey, it looks fake. But when I saw it, I thought it was real. And when that woman went downstairs in those basements, I have a stairs like that, just like that in my house. I didn't go upstairs for 2 weeks after watching that. And I know you're probably thinking, well, you ain't take a bath for 2 weeks? Nope. I was funky and afraid. Coming in at number 4, top 5 scariest movies ever, Candyman. And I ain't talking about the new Candyman. I'm talking about the old one. You know, the one with the ashy black dude who had the real bees in his mouth? I'm talking about that one. Candyman was so scary. You know what, matter of fact, I'm going to stop saying his name before he appeared. I only got 2 more times. Now coming in at number 3, top 5 scariest movies of all time. And that goes for the old one, It. Not the new one, It. Well, you know what, the old one and the new one, it don't matter. The old It or the new It, either way it go, I ain't watching It. Because of that movie, I don't even like clowns. Ronald McDonald, I don't fool with him. I rock with Grimace. That's why I'm built like him. Coming in at number 2, top 5 scariest movies of all time. Now this one might shock you. Eve's Bayou. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. But you know what? We're here in Louisiana. It seems like it could really happen. I can see all that happening. Matter of fact, that scary lady, man, that lady stayed 3 houses down from me. Nah, I'm good on that movie. And coming in at number 1, the scariest movie of all time, don't judge me, Thriller. I know what you're thinking. How is Thriller scary? It wasn't the zombies, no. It was not the Jerry curls that Michael Jackson and the woman had. Nope, didn't scare me at all. It was that part at the end. You know the part. You know the part. You know, look. You see them eyes? When he turned around and looked, I'm still traumatized at them eyes. When I was a kid for a Halloween party one time, they showed that video to us. And at the end, we were all crying and hugging each other like the rapture was about to happen. Nope, nope, nope. Thriller, that's the number 1 scariest movie of all time. I'm not doing it. The eyes. That's going to do it for us, y'all. We thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. PoliTicKing with Tony King. Got to give a special thanks to State Representative C. Denise Marcelle, of course, political columnist Tyler Bridges, and none other than Miss Vicky Jones running for Ascension Parish Judge, District E. Hey, let me tell you something. Get out the vote. It's very important, and we definitely thank every single one of our guests for hanging out with us. And you can catch me live on stage in Houston, October 28th, Dallas, November 11th, and Chicago, November 30th. Make sure you follow me on all social media at Tony King is Funny, and the show social media page at PoliTicKing with Tony King. Until next time, with the greatest audience ever, PoliTicKing with Tony King, man. We out. We appreciate you.